Right.
Good morning, hello, or good evening. Hi, I'm Peter Liu, and welcome to the Global Brain Project Hangout. This is our weekly hangout, and it is a hangout that is intended to give you a little bit more information and insight into what the Global Brain Project is, which is our weekly meditations. We are now on the 134th Global Brain Project weekly meditation. And this happens every Saturday, twice a day, 11 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. UK time, 6 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Peter Liu, and I have started participating in the Global Brain Project very recently, and I met David on the Facebook group that organizes this, and so I've had the pleasure to get to know David, and
Hmm.
um, the Global Brain Project is a website that encompasses a range of very interesting topics around meditation and its implications and what synchronized meditation's impact can be. And one of the really interesting things about the Global Brain Project and its effects is how it relates to quantum physics, and this is a really deep and fascinating relationship to synchronized meditations and meditation in general, spiritual development. So I want to introduce David Russell, who is the founder of the Global Brain Project. David, hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Hello, everybody. Yes, we're talking about the website. The Global Brain Project is essentially about not much more than coherent thought forms. Okay, we talk about thought forms. That's because thought has no substance. So what happens when we think? When we think, we create energy. We create an energy field around us. If people are having good thoughts, quite often you can read that energy field and you can pick up on whether the vibes are good or not. Um, Everything we do creates energy, and energy is fundamental to quantum physics. In quantum physics, um, any entity, a photon, a neutron, or an electron, any entity can come in one of two forms. It either comes as something substantial, like a little blip that you can see, or it comes as a waveform. Waveforms are very important. Everything we do in our lives creates a waveform. Everything we think, everything we say, every action, it's all waveforms. And we're all creating these waveforms at the same time. So what actually happens is the globe is emanating energy. Some years ago, it was discovered that if you have two waveforms, waveform A and waveform B, and you want to transform waveform A into waveform B, you would think that to do that you would need to insert more than 50% of the first waveform into the second one. That would seem to be the only way to actually effect a full transition. However, some years ago, quite a few years ago now, quantum physics discovered that if you introduce just 5% of the first waveform into the second one, evenly distributed throughout the second waveform, just 5% would affect a waveform transition. As quantum physics became more sophisticated and delved deeper into the field, they discovered that it doesn't have to be 5%. It can be just 1%. And then they discovered that you can do it with 0.1%. Waveform evenly distributed. That is the only qualification. And then they discovered that you can do it with the square root of 0.1%, evenly distributed throughout the waveform. Now, what our meditation events are all about is effecting a waveform transition. We want to, the world is generating this general confused waveform, and we as a group of meditators are generating a very coherent waveform, and coherence must win. If we can inject a coherent waveform in a very small quantity into the big waveform, we can produce a transition. The question is even distribution. That is why this is a worldwide event. One day we are going to get people who are in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time, and boom, it's going to happen. That's why we are so keen on getting the right number of people in. Just the square root of 0.1% of the population is just 800 people. That's so easy to achieve. Just 800 people can make this happen. Of course, 8,000 or 80,000, which are higher proportions of the global population, they would make it happen much faster. But the square root of 1% of the world's population, that is 800 people. I mean, this is such a fantastic prospect. We have within our grip an opportunity here to really change the world into a form that we would like it to be. I mean, it is, after all, as I say on my website, this is our world. We live here. We own it, essentially. Other people might think they own it, but it's actually you, me, and the guy next door. We are the owners of this world, and we should make it our world. It is our world, and it's up to us to do something about bringing that change about. And we have that power. So that's waveform transitions. Anything I need to add there, Peter?
Yeah, let me get this. Let me see if I got this right. You're saying that currently the globe as a whole, because of the thought patterns that collectively the whatever 8 billion or how many people we have in the world, there's a certain kind of waveform that it has is not coherent, and that a very small percentage of people that are meditating, that are focused in a certain way, can make a transition of the entire global waveform?
Right. We can actually transform that incoherent waveform into a coherent form. If it is in a coherent form, it's going to be much more positive, much more supportive of us, much more inclined to produce the sort of world that we want to produce. I mean, when you get down to it, the majority of people, we all want the same things. We want less crime. We want less poverty. We want governments that work for us rather than against us. There are just so many things that not great big things, just things that would make for a much better world. So we're not looking here to transform. I suppose it is quite a big transformation, because as a part of this better world, war would cease to exist. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we do this meditation event every week. It is a world peace event. But you know, the changes that we want as individuals, they're not big changes. We just want less crime. We just want no starving people, no homeless people. We want governments that support the people rather than work against the people. That is, quite frankly, it's our birthright. We have a right to these things. This is our world, and we have to make it into the world we want it to be. It's as simple as that. If we just sit back and let it carry on, these confused vibes, the energy field the world generates is, I'm sure you can see, not terribly positive. Um, it's a bit like the yin-yang sign. You have to have the negativity to generate the positivity, but if you look at the yin-yang sign, you'll notice that in each side, in the negative side, there is a spot of positivity, and in the positive side, there is a spot of negativity. Um, they are the spots that maintain the whole thing, the whole of the balance between positive forces and negative forces. Predominantly, the world has consisted traditionally of a lot of very, very negative forces. Increasingly, these negative forces are decreasing as consciousness changes. As consciousness changes, naturally, spontaneously, without any effort whatsoever on our parts, we start to generate more positive vibes. If you're meditating, you're meditating every day. You are generating positive vibes all of the time. Not just when you meditate, but all of the time. Everything you do, it hangs on those periods of meditation which work to create balance in your life, in you as a person, in your relationships, in every aspect of living. Um, those meditation periods are the pivots upon which a fulfilling life, as it were, balances, quite frankly. Anything else, Peter?
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, and I think one of the interesting things too for many people out there is the convergence, as we're talking about quantum physics, is the convergence of or the way that science, which has been in the past a materialist-based sort of investigation, is now sort of converging with metaphysics. I would say it sounds like quantum physics is now the is a metaphysics, and that science, which has been we see as the sort of truth bearer of a rational materialist culture, is now actually giving the hard evidences that consciousness and metaphysics has a materialization,
Yeah.
and it seems that, as you're saying, that the rise of consciousness is congruent or in step with the sort of merging of science with metaphysics.
Well, yes,
And
everything goes hand in hand. One thing produces another, that thing produces another. It all works together in a very cohesive and coherent sort of way, very quietly. Um, you will find that when a laboratory makes a discovery in one country, throughout the world, laboratories make the same discovery at about the same time. So, it's not thought, neither thought, um, we're individuals, none of us are isolated. We are all part of one system, and when that system functions coherently, as it does when a laboratory makes a scientific discovery, that coherence radiates around the world and generates the same sort of activity in other centers, as it were. Um, of course, this aspect of quantum physics is only partly accepted by science as a whole, unless you can actually come up with a mathematical theorem that supports a theory, a conceptualization. Science is not going to accept it. There are tales of, I mentioned this in the quantum physics article on the website. There was a guy doing homeopathic testing using water Homeopathy works on introducing a very, very small, minute amount of a substance into water, and that minute amount of the substance creates a vibration when you take it as a medicine in you that produces a cure. That's the theory. This French physicist was doing research into water substances containing really nothing of the added substance. And he was finding that the added substance was there because someone had had the intention of adding it. And he found that certain people would stand next to the substances, that they would stop reacting. So, you know, that sort of stuff, it's very, very difficult for science to accept that sort of thing. I mean, that people can have an influence on liquids just through their thoughts, just through their vibes. Science can't honestly and truly handle that. What you need are, and what we've got, are a load of rogue scientists who will just make the discoveries and come out and say them and wait until they're accepted by science as a whole. That's happened throughout the whole history of quantum physics. Quantum physics is renowned for making radical, almost earth-shaking statements about some aspect of the cosmos or reality, and that nobody can accept. And then 10 years, 20 years later, suddenly someone comes up with the maths that supports this theory. And that's happened all the way through quantum physics. I mean, quantum physics, half a mile ahead of the rest of science, and the rest of science is 2 miles behind quantum physics, if you know what I mean. It's a very interesting field. So, anything else I need to say here?
Yeah, well, that's interesting. You know, I mean, and I think we should point out that quantum physics is already about a century old now, and there's been quite a lot that work that has been done in that last century, and it just increases. So, interesting that there's a large segment of the scientific community that a century later is still behind the curve, but there's clearly a growing body of evidence that expands the initial discoveries. And
go on.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, one of the recent ones that you mentioned to me is Lynn McTaggart's, as we're talking about the intentions of your thoughts to create actual effects. Lynn McTaggart has written several books and done extensive research and verifiable experiments showing exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah. I mean, this is the field that Lynn McTaggart deals with. There is a book by her that is called, hold on, I'm going to tell you what it's called. The Field, that deals, in fact, the article on the website, I actually lifted from The Field. It's just an abridged version of that book. Very, very abridged. But it's got all the really relevant bits in, and it is much easier to read than a whole book. But that's what Lynn McTaggart does. She's very good at this sort of thing, and she's got a great understanding of, as I have, I think it comes through meditating, you know. I think quantum physics and meditation, they have a great deal in common. I think that when you meditate, you are actually having a quantum physics experience. And it's interesting, right from the very beginning of quantum physics, those early founders, Max Planck, Niels Bohr, and others, they all immediately, they got into quantum physics, developed an interest in some aspect of Eastern philosophy. I believe it was Niels Bohr who was into Sanskrit. Planck was a Buddhist. There were there's half a dozen of them, and they're all doing different. They're all into different aspects of Eastern philosophy and relating their science discipline to that philosophy. That's very indicative. They knew this was 50, 60 years ago. They knew that it was where it was going, and that is exactly where it has gone. Anything else?
I think actually we could just ask the viewers for more information. Go to the website. I think it's pretty comprehensive there. And
yes. Okay. Okay. Well, shall we call it a day for today then?
Yes, I think a little to chew on. And so thank you very much, David, and thank you everybody for joining us. And we will see you again at this time next week. And we'll the Global Brain Project, and hope you join us on Saturday morning. And let's make this waveform transition. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Peter. That was great. Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everybody.